Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another Women of Horror Spotlight. Today I have with us, she's an author, and listen, she has a double dose of horror that's coming out soon. She has two novellas. The first one is called Mask, and the second one's called Force of Bells. I have with us N.L. Heiser. N.L., welcome to the Horror Realm.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. So let's start off first. Tell us a little bit about Mask.
Well, Mask is a body horror novella, and basically the opposite of what I usually write, which is usually characters that can take care of themselves in the woods, because I grew up in the sticks.
Okay.
But these characters know nothing about the woods. And now they're out there by themselves, or so they think.
Now, for my audience who doesn't know body horror, what body horror is, tell them a little bit about that. What it means.
So body horror in this case is body mutilation, and there's cannibalism in this book, in this novella specifically.
And you said that this is something that you normally don't do. What made you decide to, you know what, I'm going to give body horror a try?
Well, with horror, I want to branch into every subgenre there is. I've been a lover of horror since I was 6 years old, and my dad showed me Halloween and all of the slashers. And so this is just another one I'm jumping into, and I didn't think that I was going to go cannibalism. It just kind of just went that way. And this time it's just the characters they're not the badasses that I usually portray in my books. These ones are really vulnerable and don't know what the hell they're getting into. It's been kind of fun.
And it does make, listen, I do love my horror wise, have some badasses going against, this villain. But it definitely makes it fun. It makes it, so I'm an 80s kid, I grew up in the 80s horror, the golden age. And I love when you have characters who are completely outside of their environment, and they're like, "Oh shit, what do you do?" And it adds to that real life and that element of horror and fear.
Absolutely, it really puts you in their position, especially if you're a city person and you've never been out in the woods, and if you go out with somebody and something happens and you're going to be lost, it just instantaneously puts you right there, and you're like, oh, okay, so now I have to survive, and I don't know how to do shit.
Because I mean, that's a terrifying feeling. I mean, you see in a lot of horror movies, being in the woods and you don't know how to fucking get out. I mean, that's terrifying.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up in West Virginia. I have went up and down the mountains by myself in the woods since I was 13.
Oh, wow.
And that was way before I had a cell phone or anything. The only thing I ever had with me was my hunting knife and a walkie-talkie to talk to my sister back at the house in case anybody at the house needed me to come back home. But that was it. I just made sure that my ass was back up the mountain above the house before sundown. Because if you're out there after sundown, especially in the West Virginia mountains, stuff gets creepy really fast.
because I've been to, I believe it's called Black Rainforest in West Virginia. It's the actual rainforest where they shot the Blair Witch Project, and it's a beautiful waterfall. But yeah, I mean, you could easily get lost in those woods.
Yeah, I've been very lucky that when I was a kid, I was taught how to hunt, and I have better directional skills in the mountains, in the woods, than I do in streets.
Really?
It took me until my 20s to know what a block was. Somebody tried to explain it to me, and it just went completely over my head. So I've been very lucky in that standpoint, and I think that's just one of the things I love to write about is something completely opposite of me and just get into that brain, into that mindset and explore that. It's kind of like stepping into someone else for a little while.
Now, when it comes to, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some messed up things that are happening in this novella. How did you get yourself into the mindset to come up with some of these kills?
Uh, really, this one was inspired a lot by some of my favorite slashers that, like I said, after watching slashers and horror since I was 6 years old, I will put on some of the creepiest stuff just for nostalgia and absolutely enjoy all of it. And there are so many elements of that in this novella itself. It's just stuff that it creeps you out, it scares you, it grosses you out. I grew up reading Stephen King ever since I was 8, and one of the biggest things he says is, "I will either gross you out, scare you, or uh, twist your brain, or all of them." And I'm like, this is a mix of all of it. I want to throw everything at you and make you feel like you are watching a nostalgic thriller slasher movie from back in the day, like the old school horror flick, something that you could sit there and watch with your friends and get creeped out and laugh about.
I love it. I love it. Now, how long did it take you to come up with a story?
It actually only took me a day to come up with a story. It took me about a month to write it because I didn't outline it at first because I thought it was going to be a short story. And I've never outlined my short stories. I just completely ad lib it and just go for it. I pants it. But it turned out to be a novella, so I was sort of like pausing every so often to try to outline a little bit further in. So it took me longer to write it this time than it normally would. But I got the story in my head pretty quick. Ooh, everything just sort of came together. I'm like, ooh, I want to play this element, and ooh, I could do this to that person. I was just
So,
having fun.
so who was the first person when you finished that you had read a story, and at any point did they say, "Oh my God," like, "Whoa, where'd you come up with this?"
um, Most of my friends, uh, they read my stuff, and none of my friends had ever like been a beta reader for me or anything before, and this was something that I wrote while we were all doing work writing sprint sessions together. So I let them read it first, and they know me. What's funny is most of them are spicy book writers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the only one that writes fantasy, thriller, and horror. And so my stuff completely creeps them out, but they know me and they know my head. Even the cover of Mask, when I showed them the inspiration for it and my final art piece for it, like some of them refuse to look at it because it freaks them out so much. And they're just used to me at this point, but they're like, okay, it's great, but I'm not reading it again.
Now we're going to be talking about your second novella, which is Forest of Bells. Now, were you writing both stories at the same time, or did you take some time in between?
I was finishing Forest of Bells when I started writing Mask, because at the time I was writing, editing, and publishing a short story every quarter of the year, and I wanted to put out Forest of Bells, and I knew that it was going to be longer, so I wanted it to come out during the spooky season. So I had already started working on it, and come to find out, Forest of Bells isn't as long as a novella, as a novel as I thought it was going to be. It was going to be a novella, And my short story turned into a novella as well. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do a double dose of horror. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it together.
Now, is that tough to do to have two stories going off in your head at the same time?
No, not for me. I have so much stuff going through my head all the time. And I have my stories usually planned out for like 5 years ahead of time, except for my short stories. I have a list of titles or little lines that I want to include that will turn into a story or something. But usually those are just off the seat of my pants. Just they just come out when they come out. But my books and novellas, I usually know what I'm writing years beforehand. I have a lot up here.
So I listen. I admire that. I admire that because listen, I can only do focus on one thing at a time. Because I even with my content, I have a list. Okay, I got to finish this one first, and then I jump onto this next thing. Because if not, I mean, I would be all over the fucking place.
Oh, I have lists for everything so I don't forget shit because
Yeah,
I absolutely do. But my mind has just been full of everything my entire life. And I'm a very visual person. I literally can play full movies that I've watched dozens of times in my head. I when I write a book, I see it as if I have watched the movie I've created. So I think that's one of the things that helps me differentiate between the stories too, because I actually see the characters, I see the setting, and all of it.
now let's talk about you. Talking about I brought up a little bit. We got a double dose. Tell us a little bit about Force of Bells.
Force the Bells is something I've been excited about for a while, and it is actually inspired by a few different things. I absolutely love to watch paranormal investigations on YouTube, and I have several channels that I watch religiously. And I also, one of the very first people I ever watched on YouTube was Markiplier. Before I ever wrote my first book, I was introduced to YouTube through Markiplier, through my goddaughter. And he has a fear of mannequins because of the games that he plays. I added that fear with some of the legends that have been told in the paranormal investigations in some forests that I have watched, like a bell ringing in the forest and a random baby kid being left by a tree in the middle of the forest and nobody knows why it's there, but they know if you get too close to it, there's a bell that will ring. So I just pieced all of those together and added some elements because I grew up in the woods. So I added that. I added in the paranormal investigation point. I added in little pieces here and there, and I had so much fun with this because I put in so much like mind fuckery, creep you out things just because I wanted to, just because it was fun. I wanted to add all of the elements. And it turned out so good. I'm so proud of it. It is freaking awesome. And even the cover, I wanted it to be like the old school horror covers where you look at it and you instantaneously know that this is horror. And it it's about a paranormal team that goes into a forest because there's an abandoned house in the forest and an old myth about some missing kids, and then the couple disappears and they were suspected. Well, the state is trying to take over the forest and it's a national forest or a state forest. So this is their last time to go in and investigate the house that no one else has investigated to see if they can uncover the secret of what actually happened. And it's two different timelines that interweave. and an unhinging mind, a paranormal investigation. It's just, I love it. I just had so much fun writing it. I geek out every time I talk about it.
See, I'm agreeing with you. I love paranormal stuff. Now, do you believe in ghosts and spirits?
Absolutely. I I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. I've had my own experiences, and I've heard spirits before. I've captured them on photographs before, and I just think that there can't just be one realm, one dimension. There's so much that's undiscovered in the universe. So anytime I watch a paranormal investigation, I'm just learning and exploring with them, and I get creeped out sometimes too. One of the guys I watch is Casper Site, and in Force the Bells, I use some of his taglines because I want to send him a copy because he loves this stuff, and I I just put so much of that stuff in there, and I I think that it's going to be one of those things that you can actually imagine happening. Like it could be a true story, and it's based in West Virginia. Like this is a real place that I've been to, and you could go and get totally freaked out.
Now, have you ever thought about doing one of those paranormal investigations yourself?
Yes, but I haven't learned how to block my own energy yet. So I absolutely want to go, but I don't want to bring anything home. And I
Yeah,
have a kid with special needs, so I don't want to risk her being sensitive to it. That's
yeah.
the only thing that's holding me back so far. But I absolutely want to. I want to go to the Trans Allegheny Insane Asylum here, not too far away from me. I have friends who have been. I know someone who does tours there, so I can get in pretty easily. I haven't took that leap yet.
Yeah, because I think that when you're talking about, they actually have a horror convention or something like that every year. I remember seeing that. I was like, oh, I want to look into that, doing that eventually.
Yeah, they do all kinds of things. They do night tours. They do day tours. They do conventions, and they also just do like historical tours to tell you about what all happened there throughout the years and everything too. And it's one of those things that a lot of people have to be on a waiting list for a long time because it is so popular. Because a lot of crazy shit happens there.
Yeah, because there's one near me. It's called Penhurst. Well, it's not near me. It's near Philadelphia. It's called Penhurst, and it's a famous one. And I'm going to check that out this year. But they turned that into a haunted attraction every year too. So I'm definitely going to go check that out.
Yeah,
I
I've
love
watched
stuff like that.
several investigations at Penhurst. I'm always like, that's if I ever go and start doing investigations, that would go on my list. I have several on my list.
All right. So, NL, where can everyone find you and your books?
You can find me at nlheiser.com. You find all my information, all my links and stuff there. I am on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I have a Facebook group for my Wicked readers. Um, all of my books are published on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but I also have signed copies and swag available to order at any time as well. So yeah, you can get them Barnes and Noble, Amazon, any of the digital stores as well. I have them in pretty much all of them.
Now is Mask and Force of Bells, is that up for pre-order?
No, I had to postpone it, and I had never postponed a pre-order before, and I didn't realize that I could still postpone it within that date. So I just canceled it, and then a day after I canceled it, if they told me you could have just pre-ordered, but since you canceled the pre-order, now you can't set a pre-order for a year. I'm like,
Oh,
okay. But it is coming out in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, both of them. I'm not going to be able to make it for spooky season, so it will be out around Christmas time, so you can bring out the spooky vibe still.
yes, it'd be a great Christmas gift as well. So definitely,
Definitely.
everyone, listen. Make sure to follow NL, check out her projects, and look out for Mask as well as Force of Bells. NL, it's been a pleasure having you on.
It's been a pleasure being on here. I really appreciate you coming, and goodness, I cannot talk today. I really appreciate you having me on and let me talk about my projects and just geek out for a while about all things spooky and horror.
Yes, and because one of the things I want to do, by the way, thank you. And one of the things I want to look at this channel is shine the spotlight on indie horror creators in general, but also women. Because there's so many women horror authors out there, and I feel like there's not a channel for that. So, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you're doing. I love it.
All right, listen, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. That's NL Heiser. We'll see you next time. Take care.